Hi, good morning. I trust you are all safe and well. My name's Steve and I am a local beekeeper. My interest in beekeeping started really as an extension of my hobby as a gardener. I'm a keen gardener, and it just seemed like the next natural step, next natural phase in my gardening journey, if you like. Little did I know how interesting and challenging an activity it would become, and how sophisticated bee society, or the bee species, the honeybee species, is. Yeah, as I guess many of you appreciate, human interaction with bees dates back millennia, and certainly predates any interventions or relationships that we have developed with other mammals, dogs being the obvious example. And yet, unlike our relationship with dogs, there's a sting in the tail rather than a wagging tail, and the satisfaction and the sense of purpose from beekeeping is I feel very different. The interaction is not one that at first appears mutually beneficial. Essentially we're farming the bees and taking their winter stores for our delight, and yet, ironically enough, feral bee colonies don't do well in the UK, and the vast majority of honeybees or honeybee colonies that survive in the UK do so in an urban environment. We have parks, gardens and green spaces that allow bees to have all year round forage, as opposed to the culture of a monoculture approach to agriculture, which means that really food is available in fits and starts for bees throughout the calendar year in rural communities. It's food for thought, and I wonder about bees being a barometer for us to be able to gauge the health of our planet, and for us to reflect on our role as custodians of that planet, given how powerful we are as creatures. And really, it's an opportunity for us all to engage in a positive way with our climate, with our planet, and reflect on how we can make a difference. And that might be around planting some bee-friendly plants in our gardens, if indeed we have gardens, or planting them in pots on our windowsills. That might be around signing a petition against the inappropriate use of chemicals, or that simply might be just considering what we do and how we do it. Single-use plastics being an obvious example. But certainly there's food for thought for us all, and I, for one, have been humbled by my emerging knowledge and appreciation of bees and bee society, and it's made me reflect quite a lot on our existence, human existence, our presumed dominance, and what that means, and also the word progress and what that means, and how progress is actually hindering our ability to survive and our ability for the planet to survive. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Helen, and I'm going to talk to you about the impact that our diet has on the environment. I turned vegetarian at the age of 3 and then vegan around 4 years ago. Now, for anyone who may not be aware, a vegetarian diet avoids eating animals themselves, so no meat and no fish. But a vegan diet avoids eating anything where an animal has been involved, so also no dairy, eggs, and honey. I initially turned vegan for a month to give it a try, but found it easier than I expected. And I knew that by cutting out dairy, I was having less of an impact on the environment. Now, in the last 50 years, there's been a five-fold increase in meat production, and dairy cows are forced to produce 340% more milk today than they were in 1950. This demand has led to industrial operations, and now the meat and dairy industry produces more greenhouse gases than the entire transport sector combined. This kind of operation needs space for grazing, growing animal feed, and 1 acre of rainforest is cleared per second, and around 100 species of plants, animals, and insects are lost every single day. In terms of feeding people, this isn't a very efficient process. 50% of grains grown in the world are used to feed animals. And we could use this space to grow crops for human consumption rather than feeding animals, which in turn get eaten by humans. All of these animals produce a staggering amount of waste, which impacts the oceans as well. And for every pound of fish caught, up to 5 pounds of untargeted species are trapped, including dolphins, whales, and sharks. And this is taking place in so-called sustainable fishing practices. Now, the idea of becoming vegan or even vegetarian might sound quite daunting to some people, but you don't have to do everything in one go. It's not about being perfect, but it's about being more conscious of the impact that your choices have. And it doesn't mean that you have to miss out. A lot of people will assume that by becoming vegan, you can only eat fruit, vegetables, beans, and pulses, but there's so much variety available now. All supermarkets have so much choice. Restaurants and cafes almost always have options. And there are so many alternatives. You can easily find plant-based milk, cheese, butter, and yogurt. There's nothing you have to miss out on. You can still have treats like ice cream and chocolate, and it doesn't have to be expensive. There's a common misconception that humans need meat for protein. In fact, all protein originates from plants. The only reason that meat is a source of protein at all is because of the plants those animals consume. There are so many vegan sources of protein, and by switching to a vegan diet, the main thing you're excluding is actually cholesterol. Now, there's loads of information and support available. Here are a few things that I found really useful. Vegucated is a documentary available on YouTube following 3 heavy meat eaters who are trying a vegan diet for the first time. Cowspiracy is available on Netflix and looks at the impact agriculture has on the environment. I've also noted here some websites, Facebook groups, and books which I think are all worth checking out. But please remember, it's not about being perfect. Anything that you can do to reduce your consumption of meat and dairy is a great start. You could try meat-free Mondays, or even try going vegan for a month. It might be easier than you thought. Now, continuing to eat meat and dairy at the rate the world has been is simply not sustainable. The biggest positive impact a person can make on the environment is to switch to a vegan diet. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Radhika and I'm delighted to join you on Climate Sunday. I live just the other side of the flats and I'm a long-standing member of St Mark's in Forest Gate. So thinking about Climate Sunday, for me, when I think about climate change, I see it as an issue of justice. It's not, for me, it's more than wildlife and coral reefs. It's about people. People in Asia, in Africa, in Bangladesh, on the Pacific Islands, who are already facing the impacts of climate change with increased drought, increased floods, coastal erosion, and their lives are made much harder because of this. And as a Christian, I know that we are called to seek justice, and climate change is an unjust situation. And I know that the change that's needed is huge and it's urgent, and it's going to need lots of us to get involved. And so when I first became aware of this, I sought out other people. I found other Christians. I found other people who were also, like you, concerned about this. And I found events to go to and petitions I could sign and groups, mailing lists I could join. And I tried to encourage other people to get involved. And we went and spoke to the council, we spoke to politicians, we organised events, we organised Bible studies, and it was exciting and it was going well. And then COVID-19 struck. And I have to be honest that in this last year, it's been hard to think about climate change, because when you're facing the sadness and the loss of today, it's hard to think. I found it hard to think wider. And in the middle of all this isolation and sadness, I chose to find things that gave me joy, and I found it hard to think about the climate emergency. But now, spring is here. We can see the end of lockdown, please. And I can imagine again sharing time with friends, going out with my mum, chatting to friends after church over a cup of tea. And I know that this is the time we need to put our shoulder to the wheel, because this is such an important year for averting catastrophic climate change. Because the UK is hosting the COP, this massive international conference that's going to be held in our country in November. And our government is going to be chairing that and has to work with other global leaders to take really ambitious decisions. Piecemeal change is not going to be enough. And big, courageous decisions are needed, and politicians will only act if they know that we, the electorate, demand that action. And so I am going to spend the next 9 months looking for and finding other people with whom I can work to make sure that our leaders know that we expect ambitious actions to reduce the impact of climate change, starting now, so that people in Africa, in Asia, in the Pacific will not continue to suffer loss of home, of livelihood, of quality of life. And also so that our children and our grandchildren will enjoy this rich resource that God has given to us. And so I urge all of you to find others around you. There are many here at St Gabriel's with whom you can join this work. And I hope that together we can step into this moment. Thank you.
Dear St Gabriel's, if we could use TerraCycle, we don't have to use this to just recycle. We can recycle bread bags, soap, and washing things. So why don't you try TerraCycle? It's the perfect thing to keep our environment healthy.